Good morning, West Virginia fans. Primetime Arms, past, present, future, wanted to break down the important night for Mountaineer athletics last night. A lot happened around the West Virginia football program, so wanted to do a quick morning show to get us started to break down everything that happened in Mountaineer land last night. Before we do, if you're a West Virginia fan, please remember to like and subscribe to the show. We recently passed 700 subscribers and trying to get to 1,000 as quick as possible. So if you enjoy this content, definitely like and subscribe to the show. With that being said, let's get into this morning's show. So to start off last night, this broke as I was watching the Knicks Sixers game, and West Virginia had a quarterback commitment from Andre Phillip II. And he's a talented kid. He's 6'3", 190 pounds, coming over from Klein Oak, Texas. And his offer list isn't huge. You know, he has offers from Iowa State, Army, Air Force. Rice was in there as well. But he had 1,016 yards this year and 12 touchdowns. And that was only through 3.5 games. So he transferred this year. He transferred high schools. And because of Texas transfer rules, he was only able to play in 3.5 games for his high school. So the fact that he put up 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns is really impressive. Right now, he's listed as a 3-star with an 86 overall grade according to 24/7 Sports. So there's definitely a chance for that to go up. You know, it's kind of hard to rate a kid when he only plays 3.5 games. But West Virginia saw the potential in this kid and decided to offer him right away. And I think it could pay off for the Mountaineers if you look at what he can do. So let's get to his film. I think there's a lot to be excited about for Andre Phillip II. And the biggest thing that you're going to see here is just this kid's speed and how he's able to just take off. So he runs the read option play, and he's going to go untouched to the end zone. So if there's one thing that you need in a Rich Rodriguez offense at quarterback, it is speed, and we know that all too well. And this guy definitely has it. He has that skill set that makes him valuable for West Virginia. Just nice flick of the wrist throw here for a touchdown for this kid. So this excites me. You know, again, not going to be making national headway with the star rankings and things like that. But again, it's kind of hard to rate a kid only through 3.5 games. So I think there's a lot to like here. You see this little fake pitch here, and it just shows how dangerous he is with his feet. So if this guy can make plays like this in Morgantown, the crowd is going to go absolutely nuts. So he just looks like the typical Rich Rodriguez quarterback with how he can beat you with his arms and his legs. So I think that's super exciting for Mountaineer fans. And, you know, he plays big time football in Texas. Texas is obviously a great football state, as we all know. And look at this throw here. Just really impressive stuff. So I think this is a chance for West Virginia to get on a kid early and possibly find something in this kid and get him to Morgantown. So again, the offer list isn't crazy, but you know, you have to like what you see here with his ability with the arms and the legs. So Andre Phillip II committed last night to West Virginia. Exciting stuff. So again, you can never have enough quarterbacks. And one thing that you're going to see with these quarterbacks, and if you look at some of the guys that we already have on campus, like, you know, Fox and Hawkins and Hewley and John Johnson, is all those guys can run. This guy also can definitely blaze. So super excited for this kid and what he can do in a Mountaineer uniform. Andre Phillip II. All right, let's talk about some of the past arms that made noise last night. Alek Manoah made his return to Major League Baseball. I thought this was super encouraging as a Mountaineer fan. You know, we like to see our former Mountaineers perform well at the next level. I think it's a chance for us to showcase our program when these guys are successful at the next level. And for a long time, Alek Manoah was the face of West Virginia baseball. You know, I think he's one of the guys that really put West Virginia baseball on the map. You talk about guys like him and J.J. Weatherholt, by the way, who had a little kid grand slam last night. But Alek Manoah is one of those other guys that really lifted the program. He was must-watch TV, and you had to go to the ballpark to watch this guy pitch when he took the mound for the Mountaineers, and he had instant success in his pro career. You know, you see he was in 2019, he was the 11th overall pick by Toronto, which is, you know, baseball is really competitive with all the guys around the world, and the fact that he was, you know, a top 12 pick is super impressive. And then it just took him, you know, 1.5 to 2 years to make his MLB debut. And, you know, if you look at what he did, he was dominant early. You know, he was an all-star. He was third in the Cy Young voting. And I remember watching the All-Star game a few years ago, and he had him mic'd up. And when he was mic'd up, he was so confident, and he was just mowing guys down. So he gets hurt. He has the Tommy John surgery, which can really affect guys' career. It's a long-term injury. And he has finally made it back to the major leagues. And it just goes to show about this guy's toughness and his willingness to get better and battle adversity. And he makes his first appearance since May of 2024. So 2-year layoff for this guy, but he finally makes his way back to the major league mound. And he pitched well last night for the Angels against his former team, Toronto. So he pitched 1 inning, had 1K. And again, I just think it's encouraging and to see this guy battle and make it back to the major leagues. You never know with this type of stuff. When you don't see a guy for 2 years, you're not sure if you're ever going to see him again. And we saw Manoah last night. He pitched well. And let's see what happens the rest of his season. But super happy for this guy. All right, let's talk about Tommy John surgery and great performances. We have to talk about Maxx Yehl last night. Coming up big. Maxx Yehl is a guy that come off Tommy John last year, but he's been the ace of the team. When Meyer left the team, this guy has stepped up and has been the ace of the team. And he's a guy that you've been able to count on each time he takes the mound for the Mountaineers. And yesterday he was just awesome. He had a complete game, 1 earned run and 9 Ks in his game, and 125 pitches. So if there was any doubt about that injury lingering, especially because he was taken out of the start early this year, I think those doubts were put to bed last night. When you talk about giving the guy the ball on a Friday game and a really, really important series late in the season, and he gives you that performance, it just shows you the type of player he is. So I think that was awesome to see last night, is Maxx Yehl just mowing guys down and just continuing to have an amazing season. I talked about it this morning. I put a tweet out and I mentioned that, Maxx Yehl and Gavin Kelly, people are going to remember them. We talk about Alek Manoah and JJ Weatherholt, but I think these guys, Yehl and Kelly, are going to go down as legendary Mountaineers just based on the productivity they've had this season. They've been absolutely awesome. So Maxx Yehl, great performance last night. Let's get into that game a little bit last night. So West Virginia pitches obviously really well with Maxx Yehl. Again, 9 Ks, only gave up 6 hits and 1 run to get the complete game for the Mountaineers, which is huge. You think about getting a complete game and how that sets up for your bullpen the rest of the series now, right? So West Virginia should have really rested arms coming into this one today, which is huge. You have a chance to take the series against a top 10 team and a team you're competing with for the top of the Big 12. So Maxx Yehl gave you everything last night and really set up the bullpen nicely for the Mountaineers. Let's see if they can capitalize it when they play today at 3:00 versus the Jayhawks. And then we just mentioned Gavin Kelly, but man, he is scorching hot right now. 5 home runs in the last 4 games. And it's just incredible how well this guy has played. He was on 3 guys before the game, and he had a lot of hype going into the season, but he's definitely a pro. You talk about pros on this team. There's no doubt that Yehl and Kelly are going to be the pros on this team for sure. You'll see those guys at the next level. There's no doubts in my mind. And then Guzman had a big game. He had 3 hits, an RBI, and a run scored, which was huge. So he came up big. He's kind of had an up and down season, started off a little bit slow, but has been bounced around the lineup a little bit. But the fact is, yesterday he showed up in Primetime and had a really solid performance. Tyrus Hall, 4th home run of the season for him. So that was big for the Mountaineers. That really kind of broke the game open. And then West Virginia gets a top 10 win. The last time they had a top 10 win was over the Texas Tech Red Raiders back in 2022. So you like to see those wins in that category. And now they have a chance to win a series versus top 10 team today and tomorrow. You can see, again, the stats here. Sean Smith had a triple, which was super impressive, and then home runs from Kelly and Hall, and then RBI, Kelly, Guzman, and Hall. And then stolen bases were Kelly, Guzman, Hall, and Smith. They scored runs. Guzman stole 2 bases, and Kresser stole a base. And then Brock Wills is hit by a pitch. So nice win for the Mountaineers. So if we look at the standings as of this morning, Kansas is still up top with a 20-5 record. West Virginia is right behind them at 17-8. So West Virginia is going to be looking for the sweep here. If they have any chance to take the Big 12 championship, they would probably need a sweep, and Kansas to falter a little bit in that last series next weekend. So West Virginia still has a fighting chance, but they're battling. They're showing a lot of grit, and they're right there in that conversation as we head into the last 5 games of the season. And then let's talk about football a little bit. Football was announced yesterday that there's going to be a Black Friday time slot for the Mountaineers. So it's either going to be at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock Eastern time on Black Friday. So I love the fact that that is a Black Friday game. They moved that to Black Friday. You look at that Saturday, there's usually crazy matchups that you want to watch besides West Virginia. There's the Iron Bowl, the Michigan and Ohio State game. There's just so many classic rivalries on that weekend. So the fact that we can get our game out of the way on a Friday night, you're probably going to be hanging out, eating some leftovers that night after Thanksgiving, maybe get some early Christmas shopping, but then you have that to look forward to as a Mountaineer fan, is that Black Friday primetime TV slot. So that's good. I think that's really exciting to have a primetime game on Fox. A lot of national eyeballs on that one. The question is what will be on the line for that one, right? It's the last regular season game of the season for both Utah and for the Mountaineers, and you have to be asking yourself what's going to be on the line. Last year, going into the last game of the season, there was not much on the line for West Virginia. Obviously, they had the tough loss versus Arizona State, because leading up into that game, West Virginia was starting to catch some fire a little bit. They were starting to heat up a little bit. You look at they almost beat TCU. Scotty Fox threw for over 300 yards, and then they put together back-to-back wins. They have the huge win on the road versus Houston, and then they had the win over Colorado, and then they go on the road to Arizona State in a back-and-forth game. And if they win that game, you're looking at a chance to go into a bowl game in the last one, but ultimately they fell flat against Texas Tech, and they lost, and they finished with a 4-win season. So you're hoping as a Mountaineer fan, obviously, that more is on the line for this one, and really for both teams, So let's see what's on the line for that one. If anything's going to be on the line for the Mountaineers, they're going to have to they're going to have to show that they're a capable football team early. I think Kuz talked about this on his channel recently about the schedule. But if you look at the schedule for the Mountaineers this season, you get Coastal Carolina, UT Martin. That should be 2 wins right off the top of the bat. You get Virginia, which in my opinion could be a coin flip game. I know Virginia made the ACC championship game last year, but they had a lot of games last year that were 1-score games. They won a lot of games by just a few points, so you never know if they can replicate that. Again, every season's different. It's a neutral site game, and that could be the coming out party for the Mountaineers if they were able to get that one against Virginia and really prove people, hey, we're not going to be a last place bottom feeder team in the Big 12. Like, we're real this year, and you need to start paying attention to us. So that game's going to be big. Then obviously Oklahoma State. After that, you have a team that did really well in the portal, bringing Chad Morris over and bringing the North Texas guys. Are going to be super explosive. They're that team that you're not quite sure how they're going to be. I think it's better we catch them early, especially at home, because I think they're going to be a team that improves through the season. But the fact that you get them home with all those new pieces should in my opinion, should be a win for the Mountaineers. And then you get Iowa State on the road, but Iowa State is replacing their whole entire team. Matt Campbell did amazing things there, and we're just not sure if Iowa State can win, before Matt Campbell or after Matt Campbell. So again, that's a winnable game for the Mountaineers. Then you get Arizona at home. That's a long road trip. That's a 3-hour time difference. So that's a winnable game for the Mountaineers. You get Cincinnati without Sorsby. But then, October 24th on, it gets really tough. You look at TCU on the road and at Texas Tech, back-to-back trips on the road. There's a bye week in between there, but that's going to be tough. Kansas, who knows about them? They're replacing Daniels at quarterback, but they get Kotelnicki back, so who knows? But we get them at home. Houston's going to be out for redemption, and they're a talented team than at Utah, who's always been a good brand. So, in my opinion, if anything's going to be on the line for the Mountaineers, they got to make their hay early in this one. And then I think this is a chance, too, for this game, just kind of talking about this game as we make this relevant, is just a redemption for last season. I think West Virginia was a super embarrassing loss to Utah last year. And if you guys are like me and you've been following Utah football, they feel very highly of themselves. It's almost like they look down on the Big 12, which is kind of crazy to think, because for a long time, especially when I was a kid, Utah football before Urban Meyer there was just not really relevant. They were, they were in like the Mountain West, and they weren't a power program. And now they're looking down and not happy with the Big 12. It just seems crazy to me. So I would like to redeem this game from last year and show that we are much better of a football program than we saw out there with the throwback uniforms. That was one of the most embarrassing losses I've ever seen. So I want to show Utah people this year that the Mountaineers are for real. So for me, this game is redemption for the Mountaineers. And it almost reminds me of the game a few years ago where West Virginia got whipped by Iowa State, but then the next year at home on Halloween beat Iowa State. So it could be a chance to do that. Tasbo, how are you? Good morning, my sir. Smash the like button. Let's go Mountaineers. Yeah, smash the like button, hit the sub button. Let's grow this channel for sure. So thank you, Tasbo. I appreciate it. And then, Utah just going to have some questions coming in this season too. You look at new leadership. You're talking about Morgan Scalley, who's been on the staff there, but he's replacing Kyle Whittingham, who has been there for about 20 years, 2 decades. That's a long time. So I'm sure they're hoping that they have a Steve Sabins effect where they just pass the torch and they keep this thing moving, but there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. Whittingham going to Michigan took some players with him as well. And Utah lost some really good offensive linemen to the pros this year. So they're always a solid football program. If I was a betting man, I'd guess that they would be pretty solid this year, but there's no guarantees that that's definitely going to happen. So we'll see what they look like. And then I think the other key piece of this, as we kind of wrap this show up, is just the missing piece for West Virginia fans. Rivalry week used to mean so much. Having the Pittsburgh game in this window on either Black Friday, Thanksgiving weekend, on rivalry week, and I just think you miss that. And it just stinks that the Big 12 can't get like a UCF on this schedule or a Cincinnati. Cincinnati on rivalry week would make much more sense. I think that's the one thing that the Big 12 doesn't do well is, protecting these rivalries. West Virginia, Cincinnati, Big East games, that should be the last game of the season every year if we're going to play an in-conference game. I've always said too, just, I think other schools around the country, they play out of conference games in rivalry week. I don't understand why West Virginia couldn't be one of those teams. You look at, Florida State, and you look at Georgia Tech, and all these rivalries that are played out of conference. Why doesn't West Virginia and Pitt, or, West Virginia, Virginia Tech play rivalry week? I guess, Virginia Tech plays Virginia on rivalry week, but why not Pitt, West Virginia on rivalry week? And it would give you something to look forward to instead of playing a game against a Pac-12, foe, a former Pac-12 foe on a random Friday. I actually think it'd be better to play a rivalry game. I'm sure West Virginia fans would love that as well. So I think that, again, I think the Big 12 needs to eventually fix this. They eventually have to get a rivalry week and protect these rivalries. Put Bedlam back on the schedule on rivalry week. Put West Virginia Pitt back on the schedule for rivalry week. BYU Utah should always be rivalry week. We should really make this a showcase for the conference with rivals. And I think that during this week, our conference takes a backseat a little bit during rivalry week because there's just not great rivalries, or they're not being played anymore in our conference. So I think that's just a missing piece that they need to get fixed. And that's all I got, you guys. Again, I appreciate you guys. I want to do an early morning video. A lot of news broke last night, and just a lot of topics, a lot of fun things around the Mountaineer athletic programs right now. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the show. Check out my other videos. I just put a video out late last night about the Impact Transfers Round 2. Check that out, about some guys I think they're going to have big seasons. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll talk to you guys next time on the Jersey Ear Show.